All right, everyone, it's time for a subject that about a dozen people have actually asked me to cover in the last couple of days. Phil Scott, the governor of Vermont, signing off on a plan to give a bunch of people a $10,000 or so each to come to Vermont and basically work from home, like turn Vermont into a tech, self-employed sort of utopia or something. This is probably the dumbest thing that Phil Scott has ever done. This is dumber than his stupid gun control bullshit proposal that's going to end up before a court and get struck down anyway. By trying to ban people from having a gun, if they're an adult, they can vote, they can go off to war, and they can massacre people, but they can't have a gun at home until they're 21 years of age. That's dumb. And it's also dumb when Phil Scott drags his heels for almost a year on recreational marijuana legalization when the vast majority of everyone in this extremely blue, very 420 friendly fucking Jerry Garcia state, they want legal weed because they're tired of people going to prison for simple possession. They want to be able to grow a couple plants of good bubbly shit so that they can get grandma stoned. Phil Scott's made a lot of mistakes. This one is higher than all of those. I think Phil Scott may be the one that's high, and I'll tell you why. This idea is dumb, because essentially you are taking $1 million of Vermonters' money. I don't know where you're getting that money from. You're taking, the government doesn't have money of its own. It only has money that it stole from other people. You're taking Vermonters' money. Not a lot per person, but you're taking Vermonters' money, giving it to other people who you have no guarantee will stay in the state, number one, who are not ultimately going to make any real impact in tax proceeds, number two. I've got a better solution for you if you want this state to grow. Slash the size of our fucking state budget, lower the tax rate to be competitive at least with a state like New Hampshire that doesn't have half the problems that we have, and liquidate some land. I know you love forests, I love forests too, but 90% of our state is literally nothing more than forests. Don't you think you could free up a few thousand acres across the state to get a little bit of development going? There are plenty of people who would like to move here and invest other than retirees. But right now they can't do that. Like looking at myself. Okay, I'm in the upper middle class now. I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, well, if I stay in this state, I have to pay several $1,000s in income taxes just to the state. And that's on a sliding scale. Keep that in mind. It could be a lot higher as a proportion. At the top state income tax rate, I think, is 7% in this state. So you're saying that if I succeed, if I do well, I should give you an enormous proportion of my money to pay for pothole-filled roads, increasing education budgets for decreasing numbers of students, and a state, honestly, that at current demographic levels won't exist in a few decades. In a few decades, this state will be so aged, so empty, it will no longer be able to feasibly maintain its infrastructure, and it will go into a death spiral. It'll go into a death spiral because I'll show you what'll happen. It's pure mathematics. It's pure economics. You start running a deficit. Vermont, wants to balance the budget. You can't debt spend forever. Oh, we'll just raise taxes a little bit. Nobody's ever proposed any cuts to the government because the idiot liberals in this state won't let them cut a single cent from the budget ever. Phil Scott managed to perform an economic miracle by balancing the budget without raising taxes to any substantial degree. That was the one good thing he has done so far. So then you raise taxes a little because, the Democrats that control the state won't let you do anything else. Because you've raised the tax rate, you've just shoved some people on the margins of poverty into poverty because the cost of living is going to go up, number one. Landlords, they're going to charge more. They don't want to have to absorb the cost. Goods and services, those will cost a little bit more. Some Vermonters will be left behind, and you'll need to give them welfare because then all of a sudden you'll be talking about us having a poverty problem. And the whole situation will start again. Meanwhile, people near the top, they'll start leaving the state. They'll say, well, I'm not paying this fucking tax rate. Property taxes, state income taxes. The reason why retirees move here is that their income is calculated differently. Someone's getting just passive income. They might not be paying any state income taxes at all. Lucky for them. What about those of us who are actually productive? We're not retired yet. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with retirees, but you're no longer part of the productive aspect of the economy. You're part of the passive aspect of the economy. Vermont can't survive on just having retirees. You have to have nurses to take care of them when they end up geriatric. There have to be people to build their houses. There have to be people to serve them food. There have to be stores for them to buy shit at, buy clothes, buy a car. How are those people going to make a living, huh? How are those all those working class citizens and middle class citizens going to actually maintain their composure when they're being taxed up the ass? The retirees aren't going to pay more in taxes. And if you go after their money, they'll be retirees in a different state. Then you'll go into a death spiral even faster. Phil Scott's nuts if he thinks this is going to solve it. 100 people? Yes, that's really going to solve the problems of the state. No, these will be older individuals. They're not going to be tech literate young individuals. You're going to get a bunch of older individuals who do some sort of freelance work. They'll move into the state. They'll grab the 10 grand. They'll flip their property and they'll leave. That's what people are going to take advantage of that free taxpayer money, Phil. But you wouldn't know that. You see, you're just an idiot. You don't know anything about these things. You should just be a do-nothing governor because so far most of what you've done is dumb. You shouldn't be in office. I'm ashamed that there are still a majority of Vermonters supporting you, including a bunch of Democrats, even though you're a Republican, supposedly. Now, I don't think that you're either of those. I think that you're just a fool. Our governor's nuts. This won't work. It's not going to save the state, and you are quickly approaching that point at which people like me who are younger and productive are going to leave the state. I fantasize about it practically at this point because of the burdensome taxes, and honestly, it's shitty weather. Shitty infrastructure. What are my taxes paying for? Because there are so many taxes and because the cost of living is so high, my taxes ultimately just go to propping up a few poor people that you keep more poor. You're talking about wanting to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Yes, this won't raise the cost of goods and services and just bunch everyone up at the bottom. Because people who were rising up towards, the middle class, maybe they're sort of on the margins, they're just a little bit beyond poor. Now they're dirt poor again. Somebody who was making, $14.50 an hour, they're like, well, I get a little bit more money, I can kind of get by. I'm not living off of ramen and my apartment, has electricity. Nope, now they're at the bottom again, making minimum wage. They're not going to get a raise. The businesses will just cut one out of every 10 jobs or something. There'll be a bunch more unemployment in the state. You are going to destroy this state's future. It's worse than just destroying its present. You're going to laying the groundwork for it to suffer for decades to come. Meanwhile, New Hampshire's open for business. And, with the Free State Project, they might become the first dedicated libertarian state. That'd be wonderful to have a monarchist place to go. Where state and local governance would be hands-off and actually not tread on people. That'd be great. And as a similar climate, slightly less rainy than Vermont, all things considered, very slightly warmer. If you're near the seacoast region, definitely more so. Much more moderate climate. Yeah, maybe New Hampshire is beckoning. And then Texas doesn't have any state income taxes. You know how cheap things are down here? Let's say you have $200,000. You can get an acre of land and sort of an average, ranch home here. Or you can get a McMansion down there. I got a 6-bedroom, 5-bathroom home on 4 acres. You can actually get that in some parts of Texas. You do realize that, right? You can buy more in New Hampshire. You can buy more with your money in almost any place in this country outside of the urban centers in anywhere other than Vermont. Or Hawaii. I think Hawaii is one of the few that has a higher cost of living. I'm not even sure if that's true now. People must be uprooting and selling their homes and leaving for a different island at this point. It must be playing havoc with their state's economy. Have Kilauea erupting everywhere for days on fucking end. Now, Phil Scott, you're nuts. 100 people is not enough to save the state's economy. Liquidate some land, some state holdings, some local holdings, and get, another 100,000 people to move into the state. And drop the tax rate and the regulatory fees, get rid of some of the bureaucracy in the state budget, no more problem. The economy will be much bigger. You won't have to tax people as much because there'll be more people overall. It'll be more efficient. Infrastructure can then be paid for. Another problem is we've got an overexpansive infrastructure, a lot of paved roads that lead to 3 homes. Yeah, that's really, really efficient, especially to maintain with our winters. The salt alone costs a lot of money, Phil. But again, you wouldn't know that. You just don't understand anything. You're a millionaire, so I guess you don't know how average people live at this point. You've lost sight of the average Vermonter. And it's really sad because the state government did that long ago. That's about all. Peace out.